The ridgeline looks harmless from a distance, just a clean white line carved against a bright winter sky. Up close, it's an exposed knife edge of wind-packed snow and slate rock, scoured so hard the surface squeaks under boots like dry glass. A six-man SEAL element moves single file along that spine, careful not to silhouette themselves against the sun. Below them, a frozen valley stretches out like a blank page, dotted with black spruce and jagged outcrops. The daylight is almost cruel, too clear, too sharp, throwing glare off every drift. Sound behaves strangely up here. Wind steals the edges of it, swallows footsteps, smothers breath. No one speaks above a whisper. They don't need to. The point man, a compact operator with a steady pace, slows as the ridge dips into a shallow saddle. On his shoulder, a small antenna twitches with each step. The radio has been chattery all morning, little bursts of coordination with the intel team behind them, routine check-ins with the extraction bird. Nothing dramatic. Then the radio crackles like ice fracturing. A sudden hiss, a clipped half-word, and dead air. The point man taps the side of his headset. The team lead, Chief Rourke, lifts a gloved hand. 2 fingers, check comms. The men echo it down the line. Quick adjustments, knob turns, battery taps. The ritual of troubleshooting that's as ingrained as clearing a jam. The handheld goes first. Then the squad net. Rourke tries the higher channel, the one that should punch through weather and terrain, the one that should always work unless something is very wrong. Static answers him. Not the lazy kind you get from a mountain shadow. This is thick, deliberate, like someone poured sand into the signal. He holds up a fist. The file compresses, operators bunching behind a line of rock. Rourke's jaw tightens. His eyes flick to the valley, to the tree line, to the shadowed fold where someone could sit with a long rifle and patience. Comms are weird, he mouths, because even if no one can hear him, the act of saying it anchors the team's awareness. The point man leans forward, cresting the small roll that marks the saddle's far edge. And the world detonates. A belt-fed gun opens from the tree line below with a harsh, ripping sound that doesn't echo, just tears straight through the cold air. Snow explodes around the point man's boots. A snap follows, sharp, precise, close enough to feel in the teeth. Then another. A different kind of fire, higher up, from rock. An RPG streaks from lower ground, leaving a pale smoke trail in the daylight. It hits short, punching a geyser of snow so violent it looks like the earth itself is trying to spit them out. The geometry of the kill zone becomes clear in the first second, because it has to. The SEALs are in a shallow saddle, low enough to trap them, high enough to expose them. A rock spine above them offers an enemy marksman a clean view. The tree line below provides crossfire and volume, the belt-fed weapon hammering the saddle like a metronome. Down! Rourke roars, but the wind eats his voice and the gunfire swallows the rest. 2 of his men go down fast. One takes a hit in the shoulder that jerks him sideways into the snow, his rifle slipping uselessly as his arm goes numb. He claws at his sling, teeth bared, trying to pull the weapon back into the fight with his offhand. The other drops hard, leg folding wrong, blood already turning the white around him into something darker, unmistakable. The medic, Gray, moves without hesitation. He slides across the snow on his stomach, grabbing the wounded man by his plate carrier and dragging him behind a rock slab that offers partial cover. The rock is cold enough to burn through gloves. Gray doesn't flinch. He hauls, wedges the casualty into the shadow, and slaps a tourniquet high on the thigh with hands that are fast and precise even as rounds crack overhead. Rourke and the others return fire. They try to, but in this daylight, every muzzle flash is a betrayal. Every burst is a flay. Their positions get read immediately by the enemy marksman above. Each time an operator rises to shoot, a snap answers from the rock spine, splitting snow inches from faces. The belt-fed gun below doesn't just shoot. It guides. It forces them to keep their heads down, to ban ammo in short suppressive bursts that don't win ground but keep them alive. A new sound threads through the violence, a faint buzz, like an angry insect. A drone. Small, persistent. It hovers above the saddle, not close enough to hit easily, not far enough to ignore. It isn't dropping anything. It doesn't have to. It's watching, feeding the ambush corrections. Rourke tries to push the team left, away from the skyline, toward a jagged outcrop that might break the line of sight from above. He gestures with a chopping hand. Move, now. And two operators start to shift. Bracketing rounds walk them back into cover as if the enemy can see the plan form in their minds. Dirt and snow spout in measured steps. A line of impacts that says, try it again. I dare you. The support gunner, set behind a rock, fires controlled bursts, but the weapon's barrel starts to shimmer with heat. In cold air, heat is visible. It's a mirage that tells the enemy where to aim. Magazines burn down too fast because they are firing to keep heads down, not to win. Rourke's mind does the math whether he wants it to or not. Ammo, injuries, terrain, no comms, no air, no quick extraction. The enemy doesn't rush. That's what makes it worse. They are methodical, coordinated. They aren't trying to overwhelm with numbers. They are herding the SEALs toward the saddle's center, tightening a ring like a noose pulled with gloved hands. Another RPG whooshes out of the tree line and slams into the rock face above them. Shrapnel pings off helmets like hailstones. Rourke spits out snow. He tastes metal. He signals again. Hold. Don't bunch. Don't die together. And then, in the middle of it all, something impossible happens. 3 precise impacts in quick succession, spaced like a heartbeat. The drone above stutters. Its buzz turns into a frantic wobble, then silence as it drops into the valley, tumbling end over end before vanishing into the snow. Farther off, down near the tree line, a radio pack sparks, blue-white flash in the daylight, then goes dead, smoke curling from it. And an RPG gunner, mid-shoulder raise, simply collapses as if someone cut his strings. The SEALs freeze for a half-second. In combat, a half-second is a lifetime, and it isn't confusion that kills, it's the wrong response to confusion. But this isn't a routine shift. There's no friendly aircraft overhead, no team on their flank, no comms, no visible shooter among them. Only the echo of shots that sound controlled, not panicked, not desperate. Rourke presses his face to the rock and whispers, not into a MIC, just into the cold air itself. Who's firing? No one answers. Down in the valley, the enemy hesitates for the first time, and in that hesitation, the entire fight changes shape. Earlier that morning, the world had been smaller. It had been a metal staging hut with a heater that clanked and hummed and barely kept the chill out. The air inside smelled like fuel, wet wool, and coffee that had been reheated too many times. Outside the thin walls, white mountains, bright daylight, and wind that never rested. Maps lay on a folding table weighted down by ammo cans. A compact sensor site sat marked in red. A remote monitoring array perched on a ridgeline near a border corridor. It was the kind of place most people would never notice, because it didn't look like much. A few disguised antennas, a small power system, a hidden data cache. It had gone silent overnight. The intel specialist attached to the team, a civilian analyst with a military escort badge and a pale, tired face, pointed to the last data ping. It wasn't a normal shutdown, he said. It logged encrypted bursts first, then nothing. Rourke listened with the expression of a man who had heard every explanation and trusted none of them. Could be weather, someone offered. The analyst shook his head. Not like this. It recorded something, and then it stopped. The officer in charge, OIC, laid out the plan in clean, simple steps. Move to the array. Confirm status. Pull the storage module if it's compromised. Evacuate. Stakes were obvious. Weather was shifting. The forecast promised stronger wind and snowfall by late afternoon. They had a narrow daylight slot for movement and extraction. Miss it, and they'd be stuck overnight, exposed and deep. A door opened, letting in a gust of air sharp enough to sting lungs. Everyone looked up instinctively, hands still on gear. A woman stepped in, cold weather kit dusted with snow crystals. Minimal patches, no loud identifiers. Her eyes were calm in a way that made the room feel suddenly more crowded. Not because she was imposing, because she was still, too still, like she belonged to a different tempo than everyone else. Attachment, the OIC said, as if that explained everything. Rourke watched her the way he watched terrain, looking for what it could hide. She carried a long, padded case, the kind that held a precision rifle, not a standard carbine. She had the posture of someone who had spent a lot of time lying still in bad places. The team's senior SEAL, a broad-shouldered operator named Mason, took one look at her and decided he knew her story. New liaison, junior officer, maybe a support specialist with a fancy job title and no field time. The kind of person who got attached to learn while the real work happened. During gear checks, with the room buzzing in that pre-mission way, magazines clicked into place, straps tightened, plates thumped, Mason tossed her a grin that was half charm, half dominance. "So what's your rank?" he asked, light as a joke, expecting a laugh and a quick answer that put her below him. The room was full of noise, but the question cut through it. Maybe because it shouldn't have mattered. Maybe because the way Mason asked was the kind of casual hierarchy men use when they wanted to remind someone where they stood. She didn't bristle. She didn't smile. She looked at him like she was measuring the distance between 2 points on a map. Then she answered, controlled, quiet, without ego. The exact words weren't loud, but the effect was. It wasn't bravado. It was certainty. The kind that comes from responsibility, not pride. Someone stopped loading mags mid-motion. The OIC's eyes flicked up sharply. Even Mason's grin faded, replaced by something closer to recalibration. She didn't explain further. She didn't need to. Instead, she nodded at the map. "What's the wind doing after midday?" she asked. The room blinked. That wasn't the question of someone playing along. That was someone already running the terrain in her mind. The OIC answered, cautious. Supposed to pick up. Spindrift, visibility drop later. She nodded again. "Route takes us over the saddle here," she said, tapping a finger at a contour line that looked harmless until you understood lines of sight. "That's a skyline. Snow glare will silhouette you. Sound will carry weird. Someone in that tree line could hear you before they see you. Someone on that spine could see you before you know they exist." Mason opened his mouth to respond, but what came out wasn't the usual dismissal. He just watched her finger trace the map's folds. Rourke felt something tighten behind his ribs. Not fear. Recognition. The sense that the day was going to ask for a price. She adjusted the strap on her kit and added, almost as an afterthought, "My primary optic battery doesn't love the cold. I've got backups. Just keep it in mind." The intel specialist cleared his throat, nervous energy leaking out in his voice. If someone tried to access the array, it might have stored an intercept. A real one. Rourke narrowed his eyes. Intercept of what? The specialist hesitated. Traffic that suggests a planned cross-border move. Something big enough that someone would risk coming after the data. That landed differently than equipment malfunction. That sounded like bait. They stepped out into bright daylight. The snow outside was so white it made eyes water. Mountains stood in hard detail. Shadows were sharp. Every footstep left a mark that would last. The woman, call sign Kestrel, as Rourke later learned, didn't look at the beauty. She scanned angles, shadows, high points, tree-line edges, places a person could hide and still own a piece of ground. Mason, still unsettled from the rank exchange, kept glancing back at her as they started movement, as if trying to place what kind of support carried that kind of stillness. Rourke kept his eyes forward, but he filed her presence away like a loaded round. Now, in the saddle, with the ridge trying to kill them, Rourke wished he'd trusted his instincts more. The team tries again to re-establish comms. Handheld to satellite relay. Nothing. The jammer is broad and intentional. It isn't the mountain. It isn't weather. It's a hand on their throat. Rourke signals a break contact drill. Simple in theory. Suppress, move, peel out. But the kill zone punishes any shift. The marksman on the rock spine above watches movement like a predator watches a rabbit. Every time an operator tries to crawl, a crack slaps snow just close enough to say I'm in charge. Gray, behind the slab with the wounded, works like a machine. One casualty is stable but can't move fast. The other's pain is sharp and constant, and the cold slows clotting. The tourniquet holds, but the man's face goes gray under the frost. Stay with me, Grace says, voice low, because even in this chaos he refuses to give fear a louder channel than function. The enemy uses suppression in bursts. Disciplined. They are conserving, forcing the SEALs to waste ammo just to breathe. The drone returns, or maybe the first wasn't fully dead and another replaced it. It hovers just far enough to be hard to hit. It slides laterally, searching for glint, for movement, for any mistake. Then comes the mortar thump. It's a sound you feel in your chest before you place it. A deep, muffled punch from beyond the tree line. A round whistles in and slams near the rocks, exploding snow into the air. The next lands slightly closer. Bracketing. Corrections. Visibility begins to degrade as wind lifts spindrift across the saddle, a partial veil that distorts depth. In bright daylight, it becomes harder to judge distance. The valley blurs at the edges. That's how mountains kill you, by turning certainty into guesswork. The support gunner manages short bursts, but the barrel shimmer betrays micro-position changes. Heat in cold air is a flag. Rourke's mind keeps glancing at the invisible clock. Extraction window is shrinking. If they miss it, the weather could pin them overnight in enemy country, wounded and low on ammo, with a jammer choking the sky. Enemy intent tightens. Climbers begin to push along a side gully, using folds in the terrain. Slow, methodical. The mortar acts as movement denial, forcing the SEALs to stay pinned while the ring closes. And then, again, those controlled shots. A spotter in the tree line drops. Not sprayed. Not luck. A deliberate crack. The drone wobbles as if its operator flinched. The marksman above shifts, suddenly uncertain. Rourke feels it. The shots aren't random help. Someone is working a target priority. He risks it. He pulls a small lens from a pouch, just reflective enough. He angles it toward likely high ground and flashes it once, twice, 3 times. A gamble. A question in light. Are you there? The drone slides, hunting for the glint like a shark scenting blood. A heavier weapon begins to set up below, something that will chew rocks and flesh without caring which is which. Rourke presses his cheek to ice-cold stone and tries to make decisions without comms, without air, without certainty. He signals hold. He signals conserve. And somewhere above, unseen, someone answers his light with silence. Not because she isn't there, because silence is how she survives. Kestrel is farther upslope than anyone assumed, separated from the team by terrain folds that hide her from the tree line and from the rock spine shooter. She moves like she belongs to the mountain, low, measured, using shadowed depressions and wind-carved lips. Her comms are affected too. Her headset is a useless weight, full of static. She expected it, in a way. Not the ambush itself. No one expects death to schedule an appointment, but the possibility of losing the net. That's why she operated with contingencies. Short-range clicks. Line-of-sight signals. Pre-briefed actions if radios died. If I lose you, I stay above you. If you lose me, you hold. Don't chase unknown support. Her rank reply that morning hadn't been swagger. It had been a warning wrapped in simplicity. Authority wasn't something she wore. It was a burden assigned, because Overwatch outcomes were on her shoulders. People lived or died based on whether she saw what others couldn't. She reaches a shallow depression and peers down. Kill zone geometry confirms itself. Treeline shooters. Rock spine marksman. Mortar team offset. Drone overhead acting as roaming spotter. And the jammer. At first it's just a suspicion, a pattern in the way the radios died. Now she sees it. A portable rig near a rocky outcrop. A power pack tucked into a crevice. An antenna angled to blanket the saddle. 2 guards. One operator crouched over controls, hands moving with quick certainty. Her optic battery stutters in the cold. The display flickers. That's the price of winter. Electronics that work fine in warm rooms become fragile in the wind. She warms the battery against her body for a few seconds, feeling its cold bite through layers. She swaps to a backup method, less comfortable, more manual, but reliable. She refuses to lose the angle. To get the shot she needs, she has to move. Not around. Not above. Through an impossible route. A wind-carved traverse behind a cornice line that hides movement from the tree line. It's a narrow band of snow overhanging air in places, supported by nothing but frozen cohesion and luck. Step wrong, and the cornice breaks. She disappears into a gully. Alone, she crawls and slides in controlled increments, minimizing silhouette. Snow crystals cling to her sleeves and rifle wrap. Every breath must be timed between gusts, because breath fog can betray you in bright daylight. Below, the seals burn ammo and blood. She watches them consive, sees Rourke making decisions with hand signals and stubborn discipline. She recognizes that kind of leadership, not loud, not dramatic, functional under pressure. Near the jammer, something shifts. A figure is tied near the outcrop, hands bound, face pressed into snow. A local guide, a civilian contractor, someone the intel specialist must have hired to move quietly in this terrain. A human shield. The moral constraint isn't theoretical anymore. It's a living person, shivering and helpless, positioned to make every easy shot expensive. Kestrel recalculates. She can't simply erase the jammer with one round if it risks striking the hostage or causing a chaotic reaction that gets him killed. So she starts a surgical plan. Force multipliers first. Eyes, comms, rockets, leaders, crew-served weapons. She finds a narrow lane, just a sliver view between two rock teeth, that gives her line on the drone controller and the jammer operator when they move. It's a tight window. Miss, and she reveals herself for nothing. She signals once with a tiny mirror flash, 3 quick blinks toward the saddle. Hold! Don't move yet. Then she settles in, spine pressed into snow, heart rate dropping, world narrowing to wind drift and trigger pressure. In the saddle, Rourke sees the flash. He doesn't let hope bloom. Hope can get you killed, but he lets himself register it as information. Someone is there. Someone is watching. The enemy pushes the climbers along the gully. Mortar rounds continue bracketing. The drone slides, searching. Rourke signals a tight hold and watches his men's faces, strained, focused, angry. Gray keeps working the wounded, muttering calm instructions as if the world isn't trying to rip them apart. Then the first shot comes. A crack that doesn't belong to any rifle in the saddle. Up high, somewhere, Kestrel fires. The drone spotter out-controller near the tree line, barely visible, jerks and collapses. The drone above wobbles. It drifts like a drunk insect, loses purpose, then drops into the valley with a soft, almost gentle thud in snow. The effect is immediate. The enemy's corrections falter. Their gunfire becomes less precise. Their mortar bracketing pauses as if someone forgot the count. Second shot. The marksman on the rock spine shift to re-angle, exposing a fraction of himself. Just enough. The crack hits him like a hammer. He drops out of sight. The pressure from above lifts like someone took a hand off Rourke's neck. Rourke feels it and doesn't waste it. He signals a short bound. 2 operators move while 2 cover, dragging the wounded deeper behind a rock line toward a descent route that leads to a covered drainage. Not safe. Safer. Third shot. An RPG gunner, trying to set up on the tree line edge, collapses mid-race. The loader reaches for him. Another crack, and the loader drops too. The threat of one lucky rocket vanishes like a nightmare waking. Kestrel doesn't fire rapidly. She avoids the temptation. Rate of fire is a tell. She counts shots, checks when drift off spindrift, works the problem like a math equation with human stakes. Fourth shot. She times it between mortar thumps. The mortar lead, leaning in, preparing the next round, drops. The next round never launches. The bracketing stops mid-correction. Below, the SEAL team breathes for the first time in minutes. Rourke signals again. Move. Now. Use the opening. They drag the wounded, low and fast. Snow kicks up around their knees. The belt-fed gun tries to reorient, but without drone guidance and with their marksman down, its fire is less surgical, more desperate. Kestrel's eyes slide back to the outcrop. The jammer operator gives hand signals. Not panicked, annoyed, like someone whose plan is being interrupted. Beside him, the tide guide shifts weakly, face half buried. A commander steps into view, older, heavier gear, posture of authority. He points, controlling the response. He's the one keeping discipline alive. That's the turning point. Kestrel tightens her focus. Her optic flickers again, battery complaining. Wind gusts thicken the veil. Her ammo is limited, and every shot is a commitment. She fires. The commander drops, and the jammer sputters as if it lost its brain. The signal in Rourke's headset hisses faintly back to life. Broken, weak, but present. He hears one clipped word from somewhere. Then static. Then, faintly, a call sign. It's not enough for a clean conversation, but it's proof the throat grip is loosening. The enemy adapts instantly. They realize they are being dismantled by a single shooter. They launch a new drone from deeper in the tree line, sending it up fast, angling it toward the ridge line instead of the saddle. They push climbers harder up the gully, aiming not to finish the seals first but to hunt the hidden rifle. Suppressive fire walks upslope. Rounds crack overhead near Kestrel's position, punching little geysers of snow along the cornice line. They are searching for her lane. They don't know exactly where she is, but they know where she must be. Kestrel shifts by inches, then meters, using terrain folds. She slides back from her firing position, moving with her rifle hugged close, minimizing silhouette. The cornice route that got her here now threatens to trap her. One wrong move, one collapse, and she's cut off from any escape. Below, the enemy tries a flank with heavier weapons toward the seals, attempting to repin them before they can break the saddle. The belt-fed gun relocates. A second team moves to an angle that could rake the drainage line. Rourke sees the shift and knows what it means. The enemy is trying to recover control by re-establishing a kill lane. Kestrel makes a choice that costs her concealment. Protect the team's movement over preserving her own invisibility. She fires again, not at the SEAL's immediate threat, but at the climbers and the machine gun team that are force multipliers in the enemy's new plan. A climber drops mid-scramble. His partner hesitates. Another crack. His partner drops too. The machine gun team below flinches as a leader falls. Without the commander, without the mortar lead, without the drone guidance, they are still dangerous but no longer cohesive. And cohesion is what wins fights. Rourke sees the hesitation ripple through the tree line like a gust through grass. He takes it. He signals the last hard push. The SEALs move into the covered drainage line, steep, narrow, and shadowed enough to break lines of sight. They drag the wounded, one man at each shoulder strap, boots sliding, breathing ragged. Rourke finally gets a broken radio call out through the sputtering net. Moving, he says into the hiss. Need pickup. Jammer degraded. Static answers. Then, faintly, acknowledgement. It's not pretty. It's not clean. It's enough. Above, Kestrel hears the new drone's buzz. Closer now. Searching. Her optic battery flickers again. Wind gusts, spindrift turning the world into white motion. Her ammo count is low enough that she feels each remaining round like weight. The enemy's counter-hunt tightens. Suppressive fire walks her direction. A rock chips near her cheek. Snow sprays over her rifle wrap. The drone slides, hunting for the glint of lens or the movement of cloth. Kestrel doesn't run. Running in snow makes a story you can read from the valley. She moves like a shadow, slow, deliberate, choosing cover over speed. She slips behind a rock tooth, lowers her profile, lets the drone pass without giving it the satisfaction of panic. When the climbers crest the gully lip, she waits until she sees the leader's face turn upward, scanning. One shot. He drops back out of sight, and the others freeze, suddenly unsure of whether they are hunting a person or ghost. That's her advantage. Not magic. Uncertainty. She uses it to move again, retreating along the cornice line with the same care she used to cross it. Snow cracks under her weight in tiny whispers, but the cornice holds. Below, rotor wash begins to thrum faintly in the distance, an aircraft fighting weather and time. Extraction is coming. Kestrel's job now is simple. Survive long enough to join it, without dragging the enemy to the landing zone. She listens, breathes, moves only when wind covers her sound. In the drainage line, Rourke and his team reach a sheltered bend that leads to the planned extraction LZ, a flat shelf of snow bordered by rock and sparse trees. Not perfect cover, but manageable. They set security, weapons up, eyes scanning. Gray checks the wounded again, hands still fast despite numbness. One casualty's face is pale but present. The other grips Gray's sleeve with surprising strength. Did we? The man tries to speak. You're here, Gray says. That's what matters. Rourke looks up, searching for a shape in the brightness. He knows better than to call out. He knows better than to expose himself. But the need to account for every person under his responsibility gnaws at him like hunger. The helicopter appears over the ridge like a dark bird against white sky, rotors chopping air into chaos. Snow whips up in a furious cloud, visibility dropping to a few yards. Doors open. A crewman leans out, gesturing. They load the wounded first. Always. Hands grab straps. Bodies lift. Boots slip. Men shout into the rotor wash and hear nothing. Rourke keeps scanning. The team is almost loaded when a figure emerges from the ridge line. Quiet, snow-crusted, moving with control. Kestrel doesn't run toward the bird like a survivor desperate for warmth. She approaches like someone finishing a task. She climbs aboard last, not triumphant, not dramatic, just present. The helicopter lifts, and the saddle below shrinks, becoming a small, indifferent cut in endless snow. It looks like nothing now. A place you'd ski past. A place that could swallow a whole story without leaving a mark. Back at the forward staging hut, the heater still clanks. The coffee still tastes burned. The world doesn't care that men nearly died in the bright daylight above a frozen valley. The debrief is held with gloves still on, because no one has fully thawed. Maps are laid out again, but now the red marks have meaning. Now the contours are not just lines. They are angles where bullets traveled. Rourke walks through the fight in clean language. Kill zone geometry, jammer placement, mortar bracketing, the way the enemy herded them toward a fixed point. This wasn't chance contact, he says. This was a planned capture box. The intel specialist sits rigid, hands clenched. A small black storage module sits in front of him on the table. The sensor arrays data cache, recovered during the scramble out, sealed in a pouch like a fragile heart. He swallows. The intercept logs, they weren't just traffic. They tied into a planned move across the corridor. If that data got out, it would compromise people. If it got erased, it would protect the operation. Rourke nods slowly. So they wanted you, he says, and the specialist's face confirms it before his mouth does. They wanted to capture me, the specialist admits. And they wanted the module. Propaganda if they got a SEAL team pinned and taken. Operational security if they erased the logs. The Tide guide, the hostage near the jammer, is brought in, wrapped in blankets, alive. His hands are bruised from bindings, but he is alive because someone refused the easy shot. He bows his head once at Kestrel, gratitude without language. Mason stands near the wall, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the floor. The jokester confidence that colored his morning is gone, replaced by something heavier. Finally, he clears his throat. About earlier, he says, voice rough. He looks at Kestrel, and for the first time, he's not measuring her for hierarchy. He's measuring himself. I ran my mouth, he says. I didn't know. Kestrel doesn't react like someone hungry for apology. She simply nods once, accepting the fact more than the feeling. It's fine, she says, and it sounds true because she isn't saying it to soothe him. She's saying it because in her world, function matters more than pride. The OIC asks her about the gear issue. Kestrel glances at her optic battery on the table. Cold drained it faster than it should have, she says. It almost cost me the last lane. How do you fix it? Someone asks, expecting a trick, a secret device, some cinematic solution. I warmed it, she says simply. Swapped methods. Slowed down. No hero speech. No myth. Just discipline. Rourke watches the room change around her in real time. The small shifts that had happened that morning in the hut, someone pausing, someone recalibrating, now become something firmer. Respect that isn't given out of politeness. Respect earned through outcomes. Gray reports injuries. One teammate will need a long recovery. Another will be limited for a while. The support gun will need a barrel replacement. The kind of costs that don't make headlines but live in bodies and equipment logs. Outside, the wind picks up. Snow dances past the windows. Mason steps forward, hands open at his sides. "When I asked your rank," he says, and the room goes quiet. Not with tension but with attention. "I thought it meant. I don't know. I thought it was about where you fit." Kestrel meets his eyes, calm as ever. "And now?" she asks. Mason exhales. "Now I think it was never about rank," he says, choosing the words like they matter. "It was about responsibility. And you were carrying it the whole time." Kestrel doesn't smile. She doesn't need to. Outside, bright daylight still pours over the mountains, indifferent and beautiful. The saddle where they nearly died sits somewhere out there, already filling in with fresh wind-blown snow, erasing footprints, smoothing bloodstains, pretending nothing happened. The helicopter blades are quiet now. The radios hiss with normal chatter again, as if the world didn't go silent when it mattered most. In the end, the story doesn't linger on victory. It lingers on the fact that survival came from something easy to miss. A quiet operator on a ridge, refusing panic, choosing precision, carrying the weight without demanding credit. And when the memory of that morning returns, Mason's joke, the brief pause, the subtle authority in her answer, it lands with a different meaning. Because rank wasn't the point. The point was that when everything went loud and bright and violent in the snow, she carried the team home in silence.